Oh, brother, just another day in paradise, right? Getting through all the madness, doing what I kind of normally do and try to just eat my way through with tacos. But we got to take some. it's my thing, right? It's the therapy session. But yeah, it was a good week, cool weekend. I hung out with family. I think right now is time to do that kind of stuff. So had a great Sunday with my daughter and our cousin who's also stationed out here. And it was great. How about yourself, brother?
Doing good, man. I've had a great week. Had a lot of great visitors to the house. As a matter of fact, David and Melody, come here. My grandchildren are here today. Come on up here, guys. So this is David and Melody. Say hi to Ron.
Hi.
Hey, David and Melody. I've heard so much about you. Your grandfather talks about you all the time, every chance he gets. I can see why.
Yeah. So they're over here visiting today, and we're going to play some games later. What are we going to play? Monopoly?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Or get in the hot tub. What are we going to do? We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Does Grandpa have you on the karaoke machine yet?
Say again?
I said, does Grandpa have you on the karaoke machine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've sang karaoke with me before. So
nice.
Yeah.
Got to start them young. All right. Y'all have a great one. It was nice to meet you.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Yeah. So please. So we I had my youngest granddaughter on Sunday and everything. Sandra and I did on Saturday for an overnighter, and David and Melody were with us too. So we've been in grandparent heaven here lately,
That's
man.
awesome.
But everything's good. Good, man.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, man. With I know we've been looking forward to today's show for a while. Well, we've been talking about it for a while of getting this special guest on, and then last week when we had that kickoff call was awesome. Why don't you let everybody know who we got this week and what's going on?
So I will tell you the guest we have this week. When you serve as long as I served, for 38 years and 20 years as a sergeant major, you're constantly looking at talent. You're looking at people, and you're assessing talent and everything. And our guest, I first met him a couple years ago, and what I saw out of this guy, as a staff sergeant, what I saw out of this guy was someone with vision, someone with intellect, someone with, courage and charisma, and you wrap all that up, and I don't know what you call it, but that guy's got it. Yeah, and I was extremely impressed. And he hosts the NCOPD Live. He is the hashtag the professional SGL. And it's my pleasure to welcome our special guest, Staff Sergeant Dexter Hicks, known as D. Hicks. Bring him on out, Vic. There he is.
There he is.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, man?
Not too much, Sergeant Major. Mr. Ron, what's going on?
Hey, man. Welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Appreciate it. Glad for the invite.
Well, one thing we've been wanting to do is collaborate, amongst shows. And so it was so important for us to reach out to you. And I was so excited when you agreed to come on our show, because you've been doing this for almost 6 years. And you've always been the host of your show. And now you're the special guest on a different show, even though we're still on the professional SGL platform here, an NCOPD Live platform. So how's that feel, man?
So, a first time for everything. Like you said, it's been 6 years since NCOPD Live, and to come to think about it, NCOPD Live was born on the Army's birthday. So figure that.
Yeah.
So 6 years on the 14th. I'm super excited about it. Glad to be here. And this is the first ever collaboration we've ever done. And this is the first time I've ever been interviewed, and it's being broadcasted on my platform as well. So I'm super excited about it.
That's
awesome.
Yeah,
man. Well, we I first heard about you obviously through John, You know, when he presents and talks about something, it's you have no choice but to be excited because he's so pumped up about it, right?
Exactly.
And so we and you know, I had the opportunity to travel with John, and we spoke at you know, Fairchild over here. We're lined up for a few other things, and you know, it's always, you know, you know, the top advisors, the top brass, or the top really senior NCOs, really, right? But when he told me that this is a staff sergeant, you know, I was like, man, this is incredible. I mean, I'm just curious as how did y'all connect? You know, you know, how did all this come together?
So go ahead, because I'm going to tell you the bottom line up front. Like, so I knew who he was. Like, I knew exactly who he was, and I was debating one day, like, why can't I not ask this guy to be on the page? You know, with the whole rigmarole of making sure you follow the NCO support channel, and you don't ever want to just reach that far. And so, me being at the academy, reaching to the Pentagon, that was a tough stretch. So I was like, you know what? Hey, I'm just gonna do it. I mean, my mom used to always tell me, "What's the worst your dad can say? Yes or no?" So I sent him a message, and he replied back like a few days later and was like, "Hey, I would love it." And I was like, "What?" So that's how we connected, honestly.
Yeah. I as the 𝗙𝗵, I used to get invited to a lot of things, to you know, speak and everything, and a lot of things on social media and podcasts and webinars and stuff. And we always, you know, we had Rob Couture on last week, who was my public affairs advisor, and I always told him, hey, tell me whether I should do this or not. And so once D. Hicks reached out to me, I said, hey, check this out and everything. And he saw it and he said, we need to do this. He said, this is something important, and this is something that we ought to do. So I started watching the show before I went on it. And I was like, wow, this guy has got a hell of a platform. This guy his message is just, you know, I mean, he's reaching people out there. And I thought, I got to get on the show there. And so I got on the show, and it was just a phenomenal time for me. Yeah. And I was in the position as the 𝗙𝗵 at the time. So it was just great. And then, you know, as we continue to look forward, and with communication being the key to any high performing organization, the way he was sending his message and delivering it, and the way it was being received by the force, I said, man, if we had tactical level NCOs like this doing this a lot more often, I said, we would have a much better military right now, because we would be communicating, you know, because this is how the troops communicate. I think we know that, you know, is through the use of devices and social media and stuff. So yeah, it was awesome.
What was your D? What was your inspiration? Your you know, what was that cultivating moment when you said, I've got to do this, and this is what this looks like? I'm sure it's evolved over time, but where did that come from?
Fort Stewart, Georgia. I'm going to shout out the mighty 3rd Infantry Division Sustainment Brigade, Special Troops Battalion, 274 MCT Detachment Sergeant. Okay. I was coming home, and I stopped by the shop to get something, and I ended up correcting, I think it was a sergeant, ended up correcting the sergeant. And when I went home, I was just baffled by what happened. So I got on and I got on live and started talking about it. And I was like, you know, as the non-commissioned officer, I can't believe whatever the infraction was. It was 6 years ago. So I began to talk about it, and a lot of people started commenting on it. And so somebody inboxed me afterwards and was like, hey man, you should do this, you know, every day. And I was like, I don't have time to do this. Like, you know, and then like a week or so later, I ended up seeing something else, and I did it again. So I was like, okay, well, let me just, you know, try it out for a little bit, and, you know, do a topic here, do a topic there. And honestly, it just took off and grew from like 2, 3, 7, 9, 10 followers up to, I think the page has over 74, right at 7,500 followers, and over like 6,500 something like. So it grew from just seeing something and talking about it to what we've established today is a platform to try to give insight on topics that we turn a blind eye to as leaders, And it's all to give back to those junior leaders that are coming behind me, that if you are faced with these situations, you can always have a reference to go back to and draw conclusions of your own to make yourself better in your foxhole. So that's exactly what it's about.
Wow, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, so quick question for you. So you've been doing this for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
How did my show do over the 6 years in terms of viewership? Was I in the top part, lower part?
So
you know,
I would say this. You are in the top tier now. So I know a lot of my followers are watching. The one that got the most was when the G1 team, Sergeant Major Clark, Sergeant Major AB, and Sergeant Major Pitts, the G357 somebody from that team was on there. That video in itself, total likes and people reach was over 160 something thousand.
Wow.
Well, so you got to think about the message that they were bringing, promotions, NCOERs. That resonated a lot with the followers. So, but yeah, you are in the top. You're in the top 5 tier.
Okay, good, man. If I would have been in the bottom tier, man, I'd have had to go back and reassess my game here.
No, no, you're in the top 5 tier.
No, so Ron and I, have, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, the challenges that we have going on in our country right now. Mm-hmm. And then that's why we started off last week with talking about social media and as Ron calls it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the disinformation and stuff like that about it. You've remained professional as an NCO through all of this, but you've had some powerful messages. As you look to use your platform to continue to educate people, continue to broaden the communication and everything, how difficult has it been to stay on the message you're trying to see and not have to worry about somebody looking over your shoulder, making sure that you're not saying something you should be? Your thoughts?
So I think the first thing is, as far as I see it, is that number one, I have to understand that it's not my message.
Right.
It is the message, however a person want to categorize that. And it's about stating the facts and the obvious, what we keep in our blind spot, that Johari window. A lot of times we don't want to talk about that. And one thing I'm grateful to have is my advisors. So I won't say their name because my advisors remain anonymous. But for my advisors, they keep me within my left and right limits of how I want to convey the message over to the people. So when you have something that's going on like in our country now, I think that we have to learn to face it. So I remember, and I remember this. I was telling one of my top advisors, I remember when I first went to the board as a specialist, I was scared. I was like, I did not want to go to the board. I mean, I was comfortable at being a specialist. I was comfortable. I was like, I don't want to go to the board. I don't want to go learn on NCO Creed because I thought when they went in there, they were going to eat me, like literally. Yeah. So my NCO, now he's Chief Perez. At that time, he was Sergeant Perez. He sat me down and he talked to me about it. And he talked to me and he told me, he said, the only way you're going to conquer this is if you face it. That's what he told me. And I remember my first time when I went to the board, I boloed it. I was the Sergeant Major's driver. So I was like, you know what? I got this in the bag. All the first sergeants know who I am. And it was a slap in the face to me. I'll never forget. I was downrange. And the Sergeant Major, after the board, called me in the office and he rained on me like hellfire. And told me that he was embarrassed, this and that. And I ended up getting fired. Here's where the turn of events went. After I got fired, I told myself, I said, never again will I allow that to happen to me. So now when I talk about these issues, I just learned to face the fears of, hey, there's going to be some people that's not going to like what we talk about. But at the end of the day, I just refuse to sit by quietly and not say anything because that doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I hear you.
With your advisors, when you say they keep you in bounds, I mean, do you bounce off different topics of them? Is it the structure of the show? Is it the flow of it all? Like what's I mean, because I love to hear that, and that you've kind of removed yourself kind of from the equation to where you've created a panel, a board, like you said, an anonymous board, but so it's not just you and just your message. So what do you bounce off of them? Like, is it everything?
So I do count on them a lot to as far as like if I have a specific topic that I know is going to be controversial.
Yeah.
I always get their advice. Hey, do you think we should talk about this, or do you think I should talk about this? And if they say no, it's only been twice that I've ever broken ranks from my advisors and went against what they said. But I believe, why have advisors and you don't listen to them? So I take what they tell me to heart. So sometimes they may tell me, no, we may not want to say it like this. We can still talk about that topic, but let's convey it this way. So these group of individuals of ranks, I know one's a command sergeant major, one's a 3-star general, and then there's 2 E7s, and then the one that I shared the video of yesterday, Mr. Michael K. Williams was my other. He was a civilian that was my advisor. So right now there's 4. There used to be 5, but they are awesome. They keep me, and when I say keep me within the left and right limits. For instance, when the issue happened about the Navy captain, they didn't want me to. All 5 of them was like, no, don't touch it. No, don't touch it. And it goes back to that. What's the worst could happen if I speak the facts and I talk about exactly what's going on and how it relates to us in the military? There's going to be some people that's going to be upset about it, but we can't continue to turn a blind eye to these topics because it's just going to go back to status quo, business as usual. So all 5 of them was don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it, for every different reason. And so I sat back and I thought about it. I was like, I gave them the heads up, said, hey, I'm gonna touch this topic. And they were upset, but I mean, it was actually something that a lot of people gravitated to, as far as, hey, this guy was trying to do the right thing. And what do you do when you have that leader that's trying to do the right thing? That leadership doesn't, it turns a blind eye. They just keep pushing it over, just kicking the can down the street. We tell them there's always another higher echelon of leadership, but then they're convicted if they go to that leadership.
Yeah,
so this is what we tell them. So I think that could be hypocritical. So I thought it was going to be befitting. I took the risk. It was calculated. I knew that there was going to be some backlash, and I went ahead and I talked about that topic because it is real and it happens in the military. Just as we were talking earlier about what's going on in the world now, it happens in the military, but we don't really talk about it.
Yeah, I shared a story earlier today when we were doing the rehearsal about way back years ago when I had a squad that wasn't performing very well, and every squad member was a minority, and the squad leader was a white guy. And so I went down there and, with the first sergeant and the platoon sergeant, well, I was the first sergeant at the time, with the platoon sergeant and the platoon leader, and said, hey, what's going on here? And the squad leader told me, well, I just don't know these guys. And I thought to myself, well, have you taken the time to understand who they are, their cultures, their heritages, where they're from, what, they makes them tick, how they, have you tried to build the team? And so I could see that this guy wasn't getting it. So I removed him and took one of the team leaders and made him the squad leader. And within 3 or 4 months, it was the best squad in the whole organization. My point in all of this is I think the point you're making, if we don't communicate and if we don't look to know each other and we don't deal in facts instead of assumptions, then we're going to get it wrong probably 100% of the time. And we won't be approaching and, targeting the issues we need to target, especially like with what's going on in the country right now with this unrest we have and everything. So I think you're spot on, you know, and we gotta deal in facts, and we gotta be not afraid to be uncomfortable in talking about this and learning from each other.
Exactly. I think a lot of times, because we're human, we tend to put our own personal perspective on it. But you have to take the perspective glasses off and look at what it really is. I can perceive that I'm talking to 3-4 people on here, but in fact, there's 3. No matter how you slice it, there's 3 individuals on here. And when it goes back, when we deal with perception, that becomes the reality of that individual, but it's not the truth. And so the truth is ugly, and a lot of times we don't want to face it. But when it is a sensitive topic as such, it is ugly. But it doesn't get better over time if we fail to deal with it at the root of the issue.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing is that one of the reasons why we, you know, which I love the premise and the foundation of NCOPD Live, because it's very much in line with, you know, with the Ron and John show. You know, we aren't afraid to talk about these issues and these topics, whether that be, you know, suicide, whether that be, you know, mental illness, you know, PTSD, TBI, or even racism, you know, and because we've, you know, let's not ignore the fact that, you know, we've been in an organization, we've served proudly in in an organization that over time, you know, has, you know, race has a big role in that, right? I mean, even in the Ranger Battalion, you know, I was talking with my grandfather, a great uncle, and he was saying, yeah, World War II, you know, glad that was the last of, you know, segregation in the military. And I said, well, actually it wasn't. It wasn't until 1951 when Second Ranger Infantry Company was formed out of Second Ranger Battalion, which is an all-black unit. You know, after that it had evolved. You know, but you know, we don't look at, and if we don't talk about those things that actually happened based off of facts, like, no, this is what it was. You know, yes, look at how far we've come, but now let's look at where we are, what this state is, reevaluate, talk about this, and then move forward to be better. Versus just, well, there's already a law for that, or that's already taken care of, or just tough shit, you know. And it's no, because like you said, everyone's perspective, everyone has their own unique experience as well, you know, what they've experienced in their life and seeing it through those lenses. And but if we don't have these conversations, and like you say, John, communicate and learn from one another, and just say, oh shit, you know what, I didn't quite put myself in your shoes, and man, okay, well, what can I do to be a better person, and what we can do to either you know, these experiences promote us or expose us, right? And it's up to us as individuals to say, okay, I've been exposed, but now what can I do to fix that, right? It doesn't mean that you're just a bad person or whatever your experience is like, oh, screw it. It's like, what are you going to do about it? And that's, I think, where people, once they're exposed, they don't know what to do, you know, because they don't want to have these tough conversations and actually sit through and work through that, you know. And I just, you know, my question next is, you know, we saw a couple of branches come out and talk about, you know, what's going on. You know, we have one of them on our show, which you might know, Black Jesus, right?
Yeah,
over you know, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, you know, and with what's going on now, do you see the NCOPD Live and why you with these advisors that you have? Is this if you feel like it's a voice that you're able to give to the NCO Corps, or even in general, that maybe isn't being talked about directly? And I mean, not obviously this isn't the official channel, but I mean, I feel, you know, when I was as an NCO, a young NCO, is there were some things that I wanted to get off my chest and share that just weren't being talked about. And you don't have, you said if you did talk about it, you got crushed like a walnut, you know. Is that what NCOPD Live you see is in the future, or what is that what it is? And have you had these conversations on there yet?
So in my vision and my intent for NCOPD Live is to be the voice that no one wants to hear. And what do I mean by that? Is that voice, that lonely private that's trying to get their team leader to understand that this is what happened to me and nobody wants to say anything. Or that sergeant that had a raider that gave them a bad NCOER because of a personal issue. Those voices that are not heard, that's how I see the professional SGL. That's how I see NCOPD Live. We are not a platform that bashes leaders, command teams, or anything like that. But I want to be a voice for those that are not heard. And if I can use my platform, and I have this vision now that NCOPD Live is about to evolve. It's not just going to just be military. It's going to be things that we deal with outside of the military in our own personal homes. It doesn't just have to be military structured, but I just want to be the voice and the vessel for those that can't get their message across. For those that feel that I can't do this because I'm a private. My voice is yes, you can, because there's always somebody in your corner. And whether you can't find them in your organization or you find them at your next organization, I want a person to always know that you can come to NCOPD Live and your voice is going to be heard. Between the team that I have that also supports and make sure the page is good. I take all of those thoughts into consideration. I'm just the figurehead. I'm just the face, but I'm the voice. And the voice, well, that's my dryer, you know. But I guess the dryer wants to have a voice as well. But I'm just the voice that for those that feel that they can't be heard, I want them to think of NCOPD Live. The voice that feel that someone just gave them a blind eye, I want them to think of the professional SGL, because and let them know, like, hey, don't always think that it just stops with you. There's somebody out there that would listen to hear what you got to say and take your conversation and bring it to the people that it needs to be brought to. So I just want to be considered the voice.
Yeah. So one thing you and I have talked about, and Ron and I have talked about, is this phrase called professional jealousy. Mm-hmm. And I coin people that practice that professional jealots. Mm-hmm. When I posted that on LinkedIn, I had some guy that's 18 times smarter than me come back and say, "Did you mean zealot?" And I was like, it was a play on the word. I mean, I said, look, you got to get into the Urban Dictionary a little bit. I mean, it's professional jealot. You're a staff sergeant that has a powerful platform, mm-hmm. that is attractive to not only the troops, but to NCOs and officers. Yeah. You even shared, about earlier today about an officer that saw you and said, "You're that professional SGL guy," and wanted to take a selfie with you and everything. But tell me, professional jealousy is alive and well. I think we all know that. I spent 6 months in a penalty box watching every episode of Moonshiners because mm-hmm. of that. What are your concerns about professional jealousy and about the impact you're having, and how those may take it in the wrong direction and look to do harm to Staff Sergeant Dexter Hicks?
So I look at it like this. They're entitled to their own opinion, but NCOPD Live will not stop. Regardless of who says what, as long as I'm within the guidelines of the social media policy with the Army, I'm within my left and right limits of regulatory guidance, NCOPD Live will not be shut down by anybody that is jealous of the platform. And then you have some people that just because they didn't come up with the idea, they tend to want to, like we say, throw shade on what's going on. But at the end of the day, so let me just tell everybody that's watching, if you really want to know about the professional SGL, I'm fixing to tell you right now. When I look at NCOPD Live, when I look at the professional SGL, I keep in front of me, it's not about me. So regardless of how I may think or how I may feel, I'm not doing this for Staff Sergeant D. Hicks. I'm not doing this for the NCO Academy where I'm stationed at, or ALC or SLC 88. I'm doing it for those individuals that are someday going to take my place. to let them know that, hey, even as a staff sergeant, don't ever let somebody tell you that you can't reach the masses, or as a sergeant, you can't reach the masses. I'm a prime example of that. You can do that. I had a young second lieutenant tell me that, and I'm gonna share this story with everybody. I had a young second lieutenant tell me that I would never reach the magnitude, I would never influence, her exact words, I would never influence junior leaders or anybody at my level. I was a staff sergeant. Gave me a 4-4 NCOER, gave me a no in the respect block, and told me that my career was over. I was facing Q&P 6 to 9 months later. Never knew it. Was facing 6 to 9 months later Q&P. I ended up moving out of that unit, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I moved out of that unit, became a detachment sergeant. Q&P showed up. I kept driving hard. As you all say, I kept PME hard. Kept going at it. Whenever I seen the Raider and the senior Raider, I always saluted, gave him the greeting of the day, because that's what I'm instructed to do. Was there time that I wanted to lash out? Hell yes, because I felt like I know that what you're writing on this NCOER is not what my parents raised me. So I felt like it was not only a slap on my leadership character, but then I felt like it was a slap on the face of me of what my parents raised. But I just kept the march. I kept going forward. I ended up beating the Q&P, and I'm at the Logistics Non-Commissioned Officers Academy as an instructor. So don't tell me that it can't be done. I am living proof that when someone tells you that you can't make it, never measure your success using somebody else's ruler, because what worked for them doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for me. And so now when I look at from where I came and the platform that I've built, I'm like, I want to let that private know that don't let somebody tell you that it stops right there. You have the power to be the change that you want to see. And that's the way I am. So when I deal with people that, professionally jealous against the page, some people may think like, oh, you're too soft, but they're entitled to that. It's not going to hinder my message. It's not going to stop my drive. It's not going to stop my motivation, because I know that there are some people out there that faithfully, like a TV show on Wednesday at 1900, don't bother me, NCOPD Live is on. And so guess what? I'm going to keep rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Hey, so, this is the Ron and John Show, brought to you by Veterans Lending Group, but in collaboration with NCOPD Live with the hashtag professional SGL. So, we want to flip this now and let you kind of ask the questions now. How's that sound?
So I'm glad. So I gotta do this. So my fans inboxing me, and they was like, hey, you didn't say your introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is yours truly, Staff Sergeant Hicks, hashtag the professional SGL, coming at you live from Fort Lee, Virginia, over the airways with the collaboration of the Ron and John Show. So we got two special guests. We got the SEAC retired John Wayne Troxel. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then we got the one and only Ron O'Farrell. So how are you all doing today?
Fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so NCOPD Live, we come up with some, every now and then we try to throw a monkey in the wrench. A wrench, and, we try to mix it up a little bit. So, with that being said, I want to ask, how did you two meet?
Oh man.
I want the truth. So I'm gonna take a drink of this, because I'm pretty sure this is gonna be interesting. So my fans got their popcorn. So how did you all meet?
So was it in the shit house, Ron?
It really was. It actually was. So we were at Veterans Lending Group. I'd heard, been told all about John. This is our first official time meeting face to face. And so before the meeting started, like just before, I was like, man, let me run to the restroom real quick in our office, right? So, and it's not multiple stalls or anything. It's just one big one. I run in there real quick to wash my hands up, and before I could leave, John walks in on me.
Wow.
in the bath, in the bathroom. I had just finished washing my hands. I looked up. He looked up at me, smiled, and said, "You should have locked the damn door." I said, "You must be 𝗲𝗿𝗍𝗂𝗧. I just washed my hands. How are you?" And shook his hand, and without flinching, he squeezed it, and then that's how we met.
You shook his hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure did.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey,
I mean, it was freshly clean, you know.
I retired, from DC, moved out here to Lakewood, Washington, where I'm at, because my kids are out here and my grandkids. I had my grandkids on this morning. Did you see him, D. Hicks, in the background? And my little grandson and granddaughter.
I got to take
yeah, and so a friend of mine, 𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍𝗍, who is a lifelong friend of mine, and she also sits on a board with me. She turned me on to my realtor, which is a military spouse named Candace Day. And Candace helped Sandra and I look for houses. And she said, "Hey, we're going to meet Mike and Brooke Villano from Veterans Lending Group, and you're going to love them." And, so me, in my head, when I think about people that run mortgage companies, I think of these people in these, 1970s suits with an 8-inch wide tie and big old pinky rings on their, big old rings on their pinky fingers. And they're going to tell me, "Hey, I got a deal for you." And next thing you know, I'm paying 10% interest on my house. And I went into Veterans Lending Group, and there's Mike Villano in a T-shirt and a ball hat, sleeve tattoos, and his wife, Brooke, who's also on a board with me now, with this effervescent smile. And I was like, man, these are my kind of folks right here, I mean, and then we started talking about karaoke. We started talking about, drinking beer and everything. And then we finally got around. So anyways, I purchased my house through them. And then they reached out to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to come be our brand ambassador?" And said, and it was their idea to team Ron and I together. And I thought, okay, well, let's see how it goes. And Ron and I met, and we started talking about what we wanted to do. And like he said, before the virus kind of locked us all down, we went out to Fairchild Air Force Base and did the Ron and John show out there. 17 to 21 August, we're going to be in Goodfellow Air Force Base. We'll air the Ron and John show from there with a bunch of Army troops and Air Force troops and everything. But we just kind of hit it off, like-minded, even though, he's a veteran and he got out years ago, and I just recently retired, and we just kind of hit it off, man.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys actually go over around the country and do your show.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. We normally do it in person, but then when the coronavirus came up, our producer Victoria and Brooke, they said, "Hey, let's do it virtually." And so now we're doing it virtually, and we'll continue to do it virtually even as we travel around the country to visit troops. So it's something that we both enjoy doing, and I think it sends a powerful message.
Okay. Yeah. So I know one question. I know you kind of hit on it a little bit, but just tell the audience a little bit about the Veterans Lending Group, what it is that they do there, because some people may not know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
So Veterans Lending Group. So essentially, we are in a one-liner. We are the special operations and VA financing. That's what our focus is military and veterans. That's what we're a direct lender. We're not a broker. We're licensed in all 50 states, which means that we can ETS, PCS, retire wherever you go. And the other part I think that makes us really a lot different is our education platform and marketing platform, because and not only in educating veterans and service members about their VA home loan benefit, which is what my role is as the National Director of Education, but also we hire veterans and military spouses and family members of such, and we have an internal training program that we've designed over the years, and which it's essentially it's a very quick ramp up. It's like basically like going through basic training. You get here, we show you exactly how we do the files, how we do our systems, and really how it's going to benefit and help that service member and that veteran family get into a home, get into it quickly, get into it efficiently, and with a team that they can trust. And you know, I've been with the organization for 5 years now. I just hit my 5th year anniversary, and so I saw them from, you know, when we were like 12. I think we're over 80 now, and you know, all spread all across the country. So that's what we do. And that's what Veteran-less Lending Group is. And we, you know, people say, you know, I want to be a name, not a number. For us, it's all family. Like, literally, that's what you see is what you get with us both. You know, with us all. So
for a veteran that just got out, do you all have, like, I know you say you guys are licensed in every 50 state. What are some locations that you do have an establishment where if a veteran was looking for a place of work or looking for to purchase a home,
Sure.
do you all have buildings in other states or what?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I would say to purchase a home in this day and age, you know, there's not that much of a requirement for someone to be there. It's are they licensed there, and are they familiar with that state that you're going to? Because each state, the way that they do loans are different. For example, Texas, or you know, attorney-bearing states, stuff like that. So fortunately, we're well versed in those. But our physical locations, Washington State, pretty much all over the JBLM area, the Silverdale area. We have loan officers in California, Southern California, Central California. We have a branch in Colorado Springs, Colorado there. We just opened up our East Coast headquarters in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And we're going to be pushing into Bragg, Texas, and Georgia next. So, you know, pretty much if someone's interested in joining or learning more about it, you know, because of the way our training platform is, wherever they're going, we might have already some plans of what's happening there, or you know, if we could say, hey, here's where we're going, and maybe even help them with that transition and say, if you like the East Coast, here's where we're setting up shop. For example, we just hired, I want to say like 8 to 10 people in the Florida branch just in the last 90 days. So, you know, we're always looking. We're on the move for that, and you know, ideally we like someone that has some sort of background in the military or loves the military and wants to help. You know, that's got to be in the heart. Because just because somebody could put out some good numbers, we're not looking for fast talkers. We're looking for people that again have the heart and the strong desire to help.
Okay. So 𝗲_Major, so the last time you were on my show, you were 𝗙𝗵𝗵 John Wayne Troxel. I remember you even had John Wayne in the background, and he had his old faithful musket or whatever it was that he had. And I told you, I said, when you retire, I said, don't go too far, because I want you to come back and I want you to talk about life after retirement. So I have 2 questions for you. The first question is I see that you're doing FitOps and you're doing a host of other things. What is life after 𝗙𝗵𝗵 John Wayne Troxel versus now?
So, you know, here's one thing I will tell you. First and foremost, when I got ready to retire, I knew that it was time. I mean, I could do nothing else. You know, I reached the senior enlisted position in DOD. I knew I had to retire, but I knew I wasn't done giving back to the institution known as the United States military. So I knew I wanted to do it in a way that would allow me to assist troops, their families, and our veteran community. And I knew I wanted to do it from a place of being a platform, you know, and, you know, kind of like what we're doing here. And one thing that really kind of got on my nerves as I was getting ready to deploy, there's still a stigma about us enlisted that when we get out of the military, we have to go do a GS5 job or work at Lowe's or something like that. Don't get me wrong. Those are all honorable jobs if people are doing them or want to do them. But sometimes we get sold short as enlisted. And worse yet, sometimes we self-marginalize and think that we have to do jobs like that. When I can tell you that the corporate world out here is looking for former enlisted to come out. Because one thing we've always been associated with, regardless of how long we stay in, is with people. And we look and we analyze people, we determine and direct talent, and we build cohesive teams and everything. And one thing I've been seen as I've been out here for 6 months is that that's what organizations are looking for, people that can build teams. And, I got so frustrated of people asking me if I was going to work on Joint Base Lewis McChord, at range control or something, that finally I told an Air Force 3-star, I said, look, General, I'm coming for the jobs that you're going after, okay? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to compete with me. And so I wanted to make sure I could do something similar to what I was doing as the 𝗖𝗍, except I'm not the 𝗖𝗍 anymore, and I'm not on active duty. And so I opened my own consulting company, but also along with Veterans Lending Group, I'm a brand ambassador for other organizations like Hiring Our Heroes out of U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and for ESS Eyewear, and I'm a military consultant for a Hollywood movie company, Film 45. So I never thought I would be a military consultant for someone in Hollywood, but an opportunity came up and I jumped on it. And then I serve on a lot of boards. FitOps is one of them that I'm so excited about. Brooke Villano from Veterans Lending Group is with me. Other people like Colton Smith, Tony Spadaro that we had on the show last week, Pat Alston, who has been a longtime confidant of mine, Anita Vargo, personal friend of mine, and even Tyler Gray, who I know you know, Ron, who is a former Ranger, former guy at the unit at Bragg, and is now an actor. We've all come together on FitOps to, one, get after getting veterans empowered through making them elite fitness trainers, but also to get after this veteran suicide dilemma that we're faced with. And that's one of the things that I'm really getting after now, is bringing awareness. June is PTSD Awareness Month, bringing awareness to that, but also combating the veteran suicide rate.
Okay. And okay, so
I'm busy.
Go ahead.
I'm busy. I'm retired from the military, but I'm still busy. And some days I'm on the phone all day long talking to people, and I still do things like this. I connect with troops that I've served with, and when someone, tells me they're not doing well, I reach out and call them. I had a kid call me at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he had a pistol in his mouth, and so I knew I had to answer that call, because if I don't answer it, then who? And then what's going to be the outcome? So I make it a point to always answer the phone now, especially when somebody's calling that may be in some pain, and not only talking to them, but talking to their families, and then understanding who could be the first responder. Not necessarily a first responder in the traditional sense, but who is somebody that is within their sphere of influence. It could be a first responder to come and assist them before they do something drastic. So that's what I've been doing.
So my second question is, because I know you, I can say this personally. You have proven to be a tangible leader, and I've always tried to be that. Even someone that was at your position, you kept in contact with me even while you were still in the 𝗖𝗍 position, and even when you retired, you still kept in touch with Staff Sergeant Hicks. Why do you feel the need, or why are you that type of leader that you make yourself available to just ordinary soldiers?
So, with you, I immediately hit it off with you, and I told Ron, you probably heard us in the monologue up front, where I said, I got introduced to you. Well, you reached out to me, and then when I finally got on the phone and talked to you, and then I started listening to kind of your vision and everything, and I said, this staff sergeant has vision, he's got charisma, he's got intellect, and he's purpose-driven. And I don't know what you call it when you add all of that together, but it's something that people want to be around. It is attractable to others. Mm-hmm. And regardless if you're the 𝗖𝗍 or if you're a private, I want to be around people that think like you. I think Ron O'Farrell is the same way, which is why we hit it off so much. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure I never forget where I came from. Mm. And I know, people to this day, I just had a conversation on social media. We've got to get after the crisis we have within our country right now, with the racial injustices and all of this stuff and the political infighting. We got to get after that. But what we cannot forget is that we as the United States of America are still a target for long-term power competitors, other nations, for rogue nations that would like to do harm to us, and certainly to terrorists. And, you know, the conversation I had with the person, it was clear to me that they did not know, and this person, by the way, is a retired officer, and they clearly did not know what was going on within the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. in terms of trying to protect our nation as we sort out this internal strife. And so I just want to make sure that we don't forget as a country what we're here to do as the United States military. But more importantly, I want to make sure I don't forget where I came from. Because if I'm not talking to guys like you, if I'm not listening to troops, and when Ron and I go out and visit, we have forums where we hear from the troops, even though I'm retired, I want to continue to get educated, and I want to continue to give back. So when I see somebody like you that's doing such a phenomenal job in delivering a message and operating off facts, I want to make sure I can support you however I can. You know, and beyond all that, you're actually a pretty good guy, you know, so I mean, you know, you're actually fun to be around, you know, so forget that, you know, forget the SEAC and Staff Sergeant Hicks. You know, John Wayne Troxell likes hanging out with D. Hicks. And I was so excited when you came to my retirement ceremony, man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it meant the world to me, you know, that you showed up at my retirement ceremony. And,
before we go to the next question, do you know that when I tell people like, hey, this guy invited me to his retirement ceremony, his change of responsibility, and I tell people like, I'm sitting in this auditorium next to all these big wigs, and I'm sure they're looking like, who is this guy? Like, you know, somebody's in the Army retired Preston is there, somebody's in the Army retired Daly is there, the chairman is there, all these stars, and I'm sitting there like, and I wonder, like, they were like, who is this? Like, who is this guy? Like, but it meant a lot. I said, this guy is genuine. Like, he took the time out to say, hey, this would be your appointed place of duty. If I need to talk to anybody in your chain of command, let me know. So when I went to my first one, I was like, Ace, hey, Top, I got this. He was like, well, I guess you might want to be there, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, y'all gonna tell this guy I'm not coming? So it really meant a lot to me to bring me up there, and you know, I had a great time in DC that weekend, so I really do appreciate it. You're very tangible. So I want to ask you both this question, and it's two-part. With everything that's going on in the nation today, and not just even in the nation, but in our world, about the deal on racism and systematic racism and institutional racism. My question to you both is that after you saw the incident that happened, the first question is how do you address your soldiers the following day? And then I also want you all to give your perspective on what human decency means to you. Mr. Ron, to you first.
Wow. So for me, you know, my experience and only experience in the Army is that 2nd Ranger Battalion, right? I mean, after that, I went into USAREC, but so in the battalion, it's what's interesting is that there's an underlying tone, right, within the brown fence that, you know, when you're a person of color, because when in those days, I could count on one hand exactly who was within, you know, 600, 700, 800 of us, right? And it was you knew there was 4 black guys, 2 was over here, 2 cooks, but you know, and so on and so forth. But one thing that was always driven into us was, regardless of that, we have a job to do. And I think because of op tempo and how stressful and heavy everything is, you really, some of those things fall away. So what you end up having is late night when you're getting drunk with the boys, you know, things start to come out then, right? Mm-hmm. And so my message would be that is to understand that the brothers to your left and to your right are here for a reason. You've fought, you've bled, you've cried. You know, we've lost some that have died to get to where we are right now. And whether we have the uniform on or the uniform off, remember who these people are remember to check yourself, remember to check your buddy, and if and to stand up for each other, because that's what is right, you know. And I'd want to impart that with them, so that they knew that regardless of where we came from. And I think the military is a perfect example of that. If you could throw anyone in the military into a room with whether race, creed, color, and if we have an objective, we'll get through it. We'll make it happen somewhere or another.
Mm-hmm.
We might not like it at you know, and then at the end of the day, you know, what does that look like though, right? And I think that tone should be continued to carry on. That's what my message would be, you know, to them. And as far as human decency, you know, myself being Black and Mexican, and you know, with an Irish last name, you know, I've you know, when my video, when I put out, I said, you know, I'm a Blaxican, I say, right? But I'm Black first, and then Mexican. And what's interesting is that I'm kind of like a chameleon, where I don't look Black, so people sometimes feel that they could say whatever they want about Black people. I don't look Mexican, so sometimes people could feel that they could say whatever they want around Mexicans. So when I see the human decency part of it, it's, you know, it's kind of like doing the right thing all the time, right? Are you doing the right thing all the time? Because if you're only doing it sometimes, then who are you fooling, right? You're and then at the same, you're fooling yourself, right? And so, to me, human decency is doing the right thing all the time. And if you're doing the wrong thing, right? We talked about promote or exposed. If you are exposed, then make that hard right versus that easy left, right? And continue on that path. So, and it's not an easy thing to do for some people. You know, it's harder for some than over others. But I feel like the more that's practiced, the more that we have that compassion and we're kind with one another, and that's something that can grow. And I do feel that is something that in the military, because we, you know, bring so many different people together, that those lessons that we've had, you know, are something that we can carry on to the rest of the world, and probably, you know, and hopefully show them an example of what that is. But it starts with us, right, as an individual.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, first of all, one thing, when we're public servants, whether that's in the military or law enforcement, and I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and I absolutely support our law enforcement professionals out there. I'm not going to condemn the greater good for a few that go bad. But one thing with us in this warrior class that we serve in law enforcement, we get encountered with some crappy conditions. We get encountered with some unfair stuff, whether it's in combat or on deployment or whatever it is. And the enemy and the people will always get a vote. And we've got to be sensitive to the enemy and the center of gravity, the population. And what I saw in the incident that started all of this with that poor man, George Floyd, was I saw a desensitivity to the preservation of human life. I've seen it in combat before, where men and women, because they've been through some hard stuff, they've had some life-altering experiences, they may have lost a buddy or something, and they get desensitized to what our dang reason for being here is, which is, you know, preserving human life, protecting and serving, and most importantly, executing a escalation of force that uses the requisite force necessary to calm a situation. And then the smugness and arrogance I saw out of those officers just solidified to me that they were desensitized to this poor man that was dying on the street, to the people that were pleading with them to, you know, you have the situation under control, stop, to the people that were pleading with Mr. Floyd to say, hey, just get in the car and everything, you know. They were desensitized to that. And I don't think that just happens overnight. I think that comes from either a place that it's cultivated or tolerated at a higher level. In the military, that's certainly the way it comes to fruition. And I think we've got to realize that this kind of stuff happens, and we've got to get after it. We can't just say that holding these officers accountable is going to fix the problem.
Mhm.
We've got to get to the left of it. If George Floyd dying was an IED, then we've got to treat that IED, but we've got to get after the network that cultivates and tolerates IEDs. And that's in the greater Minneapolis law enforcement, across the country, through legislation, whatever we have to do to make sure that doesn't happen. Because I will tell you, the minute anybody in the military or in law enforcement takes their profession and makes it personal and becomes desensitized to the preservation of human life, you're going to lose 100% of the time in the eyes of the center of gravity, which is the people, the citizens of the United States of America, or the population in the country we're fighting in, or wherever we're at. And I got it. It's brutal and unforgiving being a law enforcement officer or being a service member in the military, but it's our profession and it's got to remain professional. When it becomes personal, we lose 100% of the time.
So I know this. I'm gonna share something that's with a lot of people that a lot of people don't know about me. So since I was about 18 or 19, and I'm 41 now. For those that don't know it, but
still a young man.
I'm still a young man. I know because you called me the kid, so I feel like I got an adoptive father. That's why I won't let him get rid of me. So
hey, I was 15 years old when you were
that point. But you see how we can interact with each other, and we're not the same color. It's all about human decency. You know, you have a person of Black and Hispanic heritage. You got a Caucasian white male, and then you have a black male. But we can all interact as a people if we get to know each other.
Yes,
I think that that's key. So one thing that I've always started doing since I was like I think it was about 17 to 18. I'll never forget, I was filling out an application at Kroger. Kroger is like real big down south.
Yeah.
So I was filling out an application at Kroger, and when they asked me for they asked you for your race, I was like, why does that matter? If I qualify for the job, why does my race matter? So I put other and I put American. And I submitted my application. And I remember when they called the house like a week or two later, and they were asking me questions about my application. And the person that interviewed me was a lady. Her name was Miss Jennifer. I'll never forget it. She interviewed me, and she said, so here on your, she asked me, she says, so here on where it asks you for, it asked for your race, you put other? And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she was like, you care to elaborate? I said, well, it says American, right? And then she was like, yes. I said, so my race shouldn't matter. If I qualify for the job, my race should not matter. Why do I say that? I still do that to this day. Whether I'm filling out an application for a credit card or whatever, or when I was doing Sam's Club, whenever I put other and I put American. Because if we continue to look at color shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. If that individual fits the description of who you want to hire, or who you want to give credit to, or who you want to be around and be associated with, their color shouldn't matter. Because one thing I've realized is that I don't care how long I stay in the shower, how many showers I take a day, I can't wash this off. And this is who I am. So my color shouldn't matter. So that's why I say human decency goes beyond just doing the right thing. It's just treating somebody the way they should be treated. I don't even like to say treat them how you want to be treated, because that's kind of shaky. You may be brought up in an era where racism, because think about it, we all know racism is taught.
Yeah,
you're not born with that. That is something that is something that you are taught. So if you begin to look past color and get to know the individual personally, I think that is one of the ways that we can battle against this thing called racism. Your thoughts?
Let me give you an example of why you're so on point. So this was at the height of the protests and the rioting and everything. And so Sandra and I ordered Uber Eats for dinner. And, we order our food and everything. And I get a message that a kid named Deshaun is delivering my food. And so doesn't bother me who the guy is or anything, as long as I get my chow, And so comes up to the gate. We let him in the gate. He pulls up. He's got a nice car. Young man, 24 years old, young black man. He's a kid, 24 years old. D. Hicks, Ronald Farrell. He's a kid. All right. But anyways, I meet him in the driveway, and I give him, he gives me the food, and he says to me, "Hey, boss, how long did it take you to get a house like this?" And I started talking to him about, my military career and where I started off at when I was a young private. And my wife and I were in Germany, and my oldest son was a baby, and we lived on the economy. We had no American TV. I was a private and barely making ends meet. I had enough food for her and the baby to eat, and I was bartering with the supply guy to get C rations out of the supply room so I could eat. But I said I stayed focused. And so we started having this conversation about what was going on. And he said, I get criticized because I'm working to support my wife, who is going to nursing school, and I'm not out protesting. I get criticized by that. And I said, well, I get criticized, and I guarantee if somebody drove by, I told him this, and took a picture of us, they could spin that picture to say, old veteran, confronts black man walking up his driveway. Or they could spin it the other way and say, veteran, chews out black man for being in his neighborhood. When it was two men, John and Deshaun, having a conversation of different races, of different generations. I mean, when he was born, I was 33 years old, but we had a conversation because we were both learning from each other and being men, and I just told him, keep after it, boss. And I even gave him my cell phone number. I said, let's exchange numbers. And if you ever want advice on anything, if you ever want to talk again, you just reach out to me. And he texted me 2 days ago, and he just to see how I was doing. And if we do that more often, this was a transaction over food, but it turned into a conversation that led to a friendship from two guys that at this internal strife we had in our country could, be on polar opposites, but in turn, we put all of that aside, like you suggested, learned about each other, and now we can call each other friends. And I think that's what we got to do as we move forward, is just learn who each other is and respect for the persons and the people we are,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I was sitting here thinking about, a couple of situations of where, that's happened in my life. And one of them, it's really profound, is the great state of Texas. So I had a couple of different experiences there. That's, I had, when we talk about racism, that could be, that's just basically someone prejudging you off of what you look like, right? So this was just shortly after 9/11, and there was a hurricane that came through Texas, and I was working downtown at the time, and everyone's trying to get out of the city. It's a traffic jam, and I can't go anywhere. And this older white guy is honking his horn and getting upset. And I'm like, I can't do anything. So he flips me off, and this is when I was mind you, just gotten out. So I was a little more hot-tempered at the time, right? So I open the door. What the hell do you want? Oh, Gary, I'll kick your ass, all that stuff. And then he goes, you get back in your car, you. And I'm like, oh, he's going to drop the N-bomb. Iraqi? And I was like, what?
Oh, man.
I was like, it hasn't even been a week, and everyone's mindset has shifted to, right? I'm like, I was just so confused. I just got in the damn car and just was like, I don't even know what to say, right? And so that's that one experience. But the other side is my roommates, right? And when I first got there to Texas, I was just trying to find a spot, and when I was introduced to my buddy TJ, well, my friend Rock, these white guys, right, introduced me. Well, when I first met Todd and Kevin, they didn't know who I was. I don't look any type of way. So, and we're in Texas, right? and Houston specifically, just outside of Conroe. Okay. And so then they start flying, right? N bombs here and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, okay. So we leave, and my buddy Rock says, "Hey man, I apologize, man. This is not what I intended. I said, man, don't worry about it. It's okay." And I didn't say anything about it at the time, but what happened is they got to know me, right? And I was like, well, they were like, well, he was like, "Why do you want to come out if this is how they are?" I said, well, because I want to be that change. I want to show them something. And that next night we hung out, and he says, "Hey man, let's move in. Let's get an apartment together. This, that, and the other." And I said, "Okay, but under one condition. Here's the situation: is you ain't gonna be dropping the N bomb around me. I don't give a shit what's going on. That's not what I am. It's not what I stand for. You're not gonna be. I'm not gonna tolerate that. Just because I don't look it doesn't mean that I'm not it." So we had this big kind of blow up, right? And I was like, "Look, man, you're the one that needs a roommate, not me right now, right?" So the next day we had some beers. We talked it over, and it was an agreed thing, right? And because it was based off of his experiences as he was growing up, and I was sharing with him my experiences as I was growing up. Wouldn't you know it, we became best of friends. It got to the point that when friends of theirs would come around and start talking that shit, I wouldn't say anything. They said, "You know what? Hey, don't be saying that shit around Ron. This isn't the time, this isn't the place. You could don't do it in the house." So I can't control what people are doing outside the house. But what that was a lesson to me was I didn't want to cut and run. I didn't want to not have an uncomfortable conversation. And here I am, just throwing myself in the midst of this, not knowing what the hell is going to be the outcome of that. And the outcome ended up being showing them that the other side, showing them that not everyone, just because of the color of our skin, is a certain type of way. And it's something that I'm very fond of, and look back, and we're best to this day, but it was something that when we talk about, being human and how we're treating each other. And I think it's also, an education process, and that willingness to do that extra thing that makes us feel uncomfortable. I mean, because I don't know very many people, because every time I share that story, people are like, "Bro, why?" But why? And the why ended up being a great story, and something that I know that's perpetuates with them. But I do also believe that it's something that has to be practiced, right? It's something that we have that for some people, because of their experiences, up to a point, you have to understand that just because that person is a different color or a different religion or a different this, that doesn't mean that that's what that whole religion is about. That doesn't mean what that whole race or group of people is about. And getting back to your point, John, is I had a good buddy of mine here earlier today, Tacoma police officer, and he was just talking to me about what's going on within the departments and things like that nature. And he feels like his work that he's put up to this point, what does it come to? And I just have to say is that regardless of the color of skin, it's just the person in front of us, right? Whether they wear that uniform, right? That police uniform. Not every cop is that asshole that killed and that murdered George Floyd. There are ones that are out there really trying to make a difference in the community. And I think the faster that we as a society can look at a person, give them that even playing field, if you will, and let them screw it up. Everyone gets promoted or exposed, and the more that we're able to do that, hopefully we'll be better off. But again, that begins with the willingness to do that and that humbleness to actually say that you're wrong at times.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this point and I'm gonna turn it back over to you guys. So I really didn't speak on it that much, but when I looked at what was going on, I say this saying every day. I mean, every time I have NCOPD Live, I say, if you see something wrong and you fail to do something about it, then you have just created a new standard. And at the end of the day, their issue is never with you. Their issue is with the standard. Although that video was tragic, it was horrific, whatever you want to call it. My issue with the one person in the video was the guy that just idly stood by.
Yep.
May he rest in peace, George Floyd. the guy that had his knee on his neck, and the other two guys that had their knee in his back. Out of that whole entire video, my issue was with the guy that just stood by and didn't say anything, because he was the one in position that could have pushed that officer off by brutal force or by anything. He just sat by. And in the Army, they teach us interact.
Yeah.
You get involved. Don't be a bystander. Don't be the person that doesn't say anything. And when I see that, that's where I looked at, the guy that had his foot in his neck didn't have human decency. The other two cops didn't have human decency. But when I looked at the human decency of him, you didn't have the human decency to do what was right. That's what got me. And that is why I'm in this push now, even in the military, to try to bring an audience together and talk about racism in our formation and within our ranks, because we have to learn to do what's right, regardless of who the individual is, whether they outrank the other individual, they outrank you. You have to do what's right. And you think about it, the boys and girls in blue code that they have, where if one cop's doing it, you got to make sure that you're back. It's time out for that. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And you have to learn to call a spade a spade. Yeah, that was my issue with the entire video. And that's why I've started this. And we're putting the panel together. It's just about done, of some leaders that's going to come on, and we're going to talk about this in the military. And it's going to be good conversation like how we had. You guys were able to come on and give your perspective on how you would have dealt with it with the troops, and talked about human decency. And it's just to share the light in the back of your corner in your room that barely gets attention from the vacuum cleaner when you're cleaning up. That's all it is.
Yep.
Hey, great point, brother. Hey, so we've reached the rapid fire round here, where we get to ask the person, Dexter Hicks, some questions here, man. Okay. All right. So the audience will know more about you. Okay. All right. You're a transportation guy by trade, right? Okay. So if you had an unlimited budget, what kind of rig would you be driving, man? That's my first question. And second of all, is there a rig out there that you cannot drive?
So we talking about military vehicles, or we just talking about vehicles in general?
Vehicles in general. Okay.
So if I had an unlimited budget, what kind of rig would I be driving? I would be driving the Cadillac ATS that I have right now. I love this car. Call it BJ, is Blue Junior, because I had a blue truck at once. But I would be driving the car that I have right now. Listen, I'm a simple guy. It doesn't take much I don't have to have flashy, Teslas and Lamborghinis and all that. I don't ever want to be that guy. I just want to be just normal, just D Hicks. So that's what I would drive.
Is there any truck at a truck stop that you cannot drive?
No, so actually I do know how to drive a semi rig. So my uncle used to work for 𝗟, and this is a true story. And I don't know if he's watching this. So my uncle Timothy, we call him Uncle Timmy back in Texas. He took me on the road with him, and he was driving for 𝗟. And so we're driving this truck, and we're going down to Harlingen, Texas. And so my uncle's driving, and he's like, man, I'm tired. I need you to get over here and drive. I'm like, man, I don't know how to drive this truck. He's like, man, look, man, all you got to do is just get over here. Just keep this right here, man. I'm going to nap for a few minutes. I'm like, I do not know how to drive this truck. And my uncle got me behind the wheel while the truck is driving, and we're going down the highway. I don't even have a license. I think I must have been about 12 or 13. I know my aunt probably looking at my grandma's gonna like have a fit. So he gets me behind an 18-wheeler, and I'm driving it. And so I'm like, hey, it's traffic coming up. He's like, hey, mash that over there and just downshift. So he showed me how to do it, and that is how I learned how to drive a big rig. And on the way back up to Houston, he let me drive it again, and that's how I learned.
Awesome. All right, over to you, Ron, to close us out, man.
All right, man. Okay, let me think here. So, out of this is probably a little controversial, but that's okay because I like to mix it up a little bit here. Let's mix it up here, especially in this day and age that we got, because I've been asked this question and I've got my answer. But over the years of obviously with civil rights, and there's all these different leaders that there. Where do you see which philosophies of these three black men do you more not follow, but that more resonate with you? MLK, Malcolm X, Farrakhan.
So true story, I would probably say all three, because I believe in taking something from here and learning something to do from that individual. So it kind of would, I kind of mix it all together. So true story, something else about the professional SGL that a lot of people don't know. So I watch videos, YouTube videos of former President George Bush, the son, and former President Barack Obama, and the late great Senator John McCain. And so a lot of people may say, well, why do you watch these videos? Is because even though they disagreed on so many issues, they always found time to have the common decency for each other as people. So those are like three of my role models that I try to emulate behind, are those three. But if I had to pick out of those three who would be the most influential, I probably would pull from each one of them, because I can always find the good in one person. I may be able to like, oh, you know what, I might not do it like that, but I can use it, but I'm gonna tailor it this way. So I try to be as transparent as possible, but it would probably be all three.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Hicks, you are, I appreciate you being on the show today, man. I appreciate your vision, your charisma, your candor, you know, just how you do business, man. And I will tell you, on behalf of this grateful veteran, I'm glad you're still serving in uniform, but more importantly, I'm glad to call you friend, man. Wow. Thanks again for being here today.
I appreciate it. I appreciate everything. I appreciate the opportunity to come on to the platform. And if there's anything that I can ever do to support, just know that myself and the advisors and the team from NCOPD Live, we're always here to lend a helping hand. So I appreciate it. And you all have a great evening and enjoy your weekend.
Awesome. Everyone, thanks so much for joining on the Ron and John show today. Obviously, we had, we don't pull any punches here. We go all the way. And of course, it's brought to you by Veterans Lending Group. We are the special operations in VA financing. If you're interested in a refinance, cash out refinance, maybe you're PCSing and you're looking for a new purchase, we can get you squared away. We are licensed in all 50 states, which means that we can ETS, PCS, or retire wherever it is that you're going. If you need some more information about your VA home loan benefit, we put on weekly classes. Right now, they're all live online. It's me up there teaching, as well as my colleague Lean Nguyen at VAHomeLoanBootCamp.com. We go over all the ins and outs of your VA home loan benefit. We got advanced classes, credit building strategies, and much, much more. Again, you all, thank you so much. John, we'll catch you next week. D Hicks, man, it's fantastic. I love what you're doing, man. I can't tell you how excited I am of what you're doing for all the military, right? I mean, it's the entire community. I would say just NCOs, but it's not. It's much more than that. And to create a community that others can log in and really see our side and that perspective, man, that's awesome. I love it. Love to see it. Wish you the best of luck.
I see that. Don't forget the quote. So before I say the quote, so Mr. Ron, so would you be willing? I'm going to give an open invitation. Would you be willing to come on to NCOPD Live and talk more in depth about the Veterans Lending Group and the services that you guys can provide to veterans? Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely,
okay.
Man. We could put something up tailored specifically for the group and spend some time. You do some rapid fire questions, all the ins and outs. You got it, man. You let me know.
So we will definitely be getting with you on that. And the quotes, everybody out there, NCOPD Live, y'all say it with me. If you see something wrong and you fail to do something about it, then you have just created a new standard. And at the end of the day, the issue is never with you. but their issue is always with the standard. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Way to close
Thanks
it out,
again.
brother. You have a great one.
Y'all have a great week. Take care.